Welcome to a Fresh Perspective podcast, catering to the latest in ingredient trends, consumer insights, and food news. Brought to you by Corbion.
Hi, welcome back. This is Fresh Perspective, a podcast that is just about everything that is related to food. I'm CJ.
And I'm Jenny.
And today we're going to be talking about whole grains. National Whole Grains Month is just around the corner. And
I didn't know there was a month.
There is.
Are there months for other foods like French fries month? Or?
There are days for other foods like, National Donut Day, National Hot Dog Day, which I'm assuming is somewhere in the summer. I don't know if any other food gets an entire month. That's a good question, though.
Maybe it's because wheat is or whole grains are healthy and good for you, and we should focus on them for a whole month, right?
Exactly. There's so much to learn about them, and they're so diverse. I learned more about whole grains than I ever thought I would know when I started in the baking industry and when I started researching this. So nice. I feel like we're going to learn even more today. But
I don't see your plants. What's going on?
I know.
Where are your plants? Did you kill them all?
So fun story for everyone that's listening. We both moved over the last month, and so now we have whole new backdrops.
Yes, and I have a door. So those of you that enjoy watching me chase my dogs up the stairs, not anymore.
I have all my plants here and all over there, but nowhere that you can see them. So the small jungle background that you used to get is no longer available. But I'll make sure to bring in a plant and introduce them once an episode or something.
See, I was going to say, you need to start telling people what your plants' names are, because I recently learned that you name them.
I name every single one, all 67.
I love it so much. I can't wait to meet them.
Getting insane. But yeah, so we're both in our new houses and still working from home for the most part. And so part of that has been binge watching Netflix. And so I learned something that is going to lead directly into this whole grains conversation. But have you heard about blue zones?
No. What's a blue zone?
So I was watching, it's called Down to Earth with Zac Efron and a health guy. And they travel the world and figure out solutions to the world's problems and what all the different countries are doing to fight them. Or to help.
Good show, by the way.
Bad things. It is. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
But one of them, they were in Italy, I believe, and they were learning about blue zones, which is there are 5 to 7 of them in the world, but it is the areas that have the longest living and healthiest people. And so I started doing research as to why that was.
Yeah.
So in these 5 zones, people typically live over 100 centurions or something like that. Yes. And so I started researching it, and there were 9 things that they say they do. And so I'm just going to read my favorites of this.
Okay, I can't wait.
One of them was just move naturally. So they were people don't actually in these areas do they're not lifting weights. They're not bodybuilders. They're not running marathons. They just are encouraged to move normally within your day. So gardening, things that we normally automate. That's their form of exercise.
Oh my gosh. Okay, great. So no working out. Check.
No work. Yeah, right. Just normal amounts of movement. The second was drink 2 glasses of wine every day at 5. And I was I am on board with this. Exactly. Though I did have to Google and see, could you save those 2 glasses of wine up and drink 14 on Saturday? And they said no.
Really? And will 3 take you out of the blue zone? Now Probably. You're in the red kind of a thing?
I bet. And then the last one, which is going to lead us directly into this, was plant slant. So they eat a lot of plant-based foods, and they only eat whole grains, wheat, rye, and barley mostly, and sourdough. And I was see, grains are good for you. Whole grains even better, which is going to take
sourdough is delicious.
It is. So I was this is perfect.
Yay.
So, yeah.
So we have a guest.
Yes.
Who's our guest?
So we are going to introduce Kelly Toups, who is the Director of Nutrition at Oldways. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi. How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
Doing good.
Good.
Have you heard of blue zones?
I have, yes.
Did you watch Down to Earth?
I did all the episodes.
Yes.
It was really good.
It was. I binge watched them all
kind
on
of
one
fulfilled
Friday.
the travel longing
that we all are craving so badly right now.
I feel like all of us need to move to a blue zone. Then I get to drink, not work out, and live to be 100.
and eat lots of whole grains.
Lots of whole grains. That's right.
So tell us just a little bit about Oldways and about National Whole Grains Month.
Sure. So Oldways is a nonprofit nutrition education organization. We are founded in 1990, so been around for about 30 years now. And our mission is to inspire people to embrace the healthy and sustainable joys of the old ways of eating. So in a pre-COVID time, one way that we helped connect people with traditional diets was by doing culinary tours of the Mediterranean, so that people can learn about the Mediterranean diet by experiencing it.
What?
But
that's a thing?
Yeah.
Will that come back?
It.
Will that come back post-COVID?
Yeah, as soon as we're allowed to go back, definitely.
CJ podcast.
I feel like this is something that we have to do to experience it, to
Obviously.
talk about it.
Yes.
But we also at Oldways founded the Whole Grains Council to help, get people to eat more whole grains. And so we do a lot of educational events with consumers. We work with the food industry, and we do the gold and black whole grain stamp that you might see on food packages.
We apply for lots of them.
So yeah, definitely kind of trying to get at it from every angle to help people gradually work their way to more and more whole grain.
So National Whole Grains Month is the entire month of September. And what is the goal of that? Just to awareness and help people learn about whole grains and how awesome they are?
Absolutely. So in September, we really want to, focus on whole grains for the whole month and, encourage people to really try and make that transition. So whether it's trying, one new food or, trying to switch out from white rice to brown rice or quinoa, just little things all month long to really emphasize it.
Wonderful.
Nice.
Do you have any social media channels you want to throw out there that people can follow along for the month and learn new things about it?
Yes, I think the best place to visit would be wholegrainscouncil.org, our website, because during Whole Grains Month, we actually have a pretty cool challenge. And every day we'll post a new challenge that someone can do, whether it's like making a pizza on whole wheat crust or like taking a picture of a whole grain item they have in their pantry. I mean, all kinds of stuff. And
so fun.
And you can win prizes, including cash prizes at the end too. So
challenge accepted. You will see us posting pictures of whole grains items.
I have quinoa, I know, because my children ask me if they can make quinoa all the time. And I'm always
adorable.
Quinoa? I mean, I guess. I don't know what it is.
Well,
it's in my pantry. You can eat it.
My mom called it quino or quino for a long time. And I was like, what is happening? What does that even mean? Like, what are you talking about? And then I was like, oh, quinoa. Got you.
And I mean, I guess as long as you're eating it, who cares?
Go for it, right?
Yeah, you can call it whatever you want.
Exactly. So let's just start at the basics. 101 whole grains. What is a whole grain? Just so the world knows.
Sure. So a whole grain is a grain that has all of its bran, germ, and endosperm. So all of the parts of the kernel are still there. It can be ground into flour, but all those components still have to be there. So what wouldn't be a whole grain would be something that has been refined where some of those pieces have been stripped out.
Okay.
So what's the difference between that and whole wheat? Like when you read about whole wheat bread?
Sure. So whole wheat is just one type of whole grain, but whole grains are basically a food group. So other whole grains would be like brown rice or quinoa or barley or buckwheat or different things like that.
Okay.
And so they all kind of fall into the one category of whole grains or whole wheat.
Right. Yeah. So wheat is just one type of grain. So all whole wheat is a whole grain, but not all whole grain is whole wheat. How's that for a tongue twister?
No, but it makes sense.
Because whole wheat bread, for example, doesn't have the nutty texture that when I buy whole grain bread, it does. So I'm always wondering, is it less healthy to have the whole wheat or more healthy to buy the whole grain? What's what's the best choice for my family or, me.
Yeah, I would say, the whole wheat is just the wheat, and it sounds like whole grain bread you're buying might have other grains mixed into it for different textures. So that's definitely personal preference. But of course, like when a doctor tells you you should eat vegetables, we know that we shouldn't just eat broccoli. Like we should eat a variety of, and it's kind of the same thing with grains. Like whole wheat is wonderful and it's easy to find and it's typically pretty affordable. But there's obviously a lot of other options out there that can fill other nutrient needs as well.
And so you said that you were just mentioning that some of the bread she might purchase have varying levels of the whole grains or the whole wheat. So, and I know this just from putting in the applications into the Oldways Whole Grain Foundation stamp, but what are the different levels that are considered like approved to be a whole grain bread? Like is it 8 grams or is it a certain percentage of the grains within the bread?
Yeah, so to use our whole grain stamp, there's 3 levels. So there's 100% stamp, which indicates that all of the grains are whole. We also have a 50% plus stamp, and that indicates that at least half of the grains are half of the grain ingredients are whole grain. And then there's a basic stamp that indicates that the product has at least 8 grams of whole grain, but it might have more refined grain ingredients. So,
gotcha. So when you're out shopping, that can help you maybe decide like, oh, maybe I do like actually the 100% whole grain, and that's got the texture and the flavor versus the 50%, which would obviously be less.
And people, if they're new to it, they might start small and then kind of work their way up. So there's something for everyone out there.
I did just buy my first loaf of sprouted bread the other day.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Which I honestly don't even know what it means, but it is my favorite, like to toast and put, butter or peanut. It's like crunchy, like almost like peanut butter, but that's the bread itself.
So good.
Oh
so
my gosh.
Where do ancient and sprouted grains fall kind of in that realm?
Yeah, so ancient grains, there's no official definition, but we typically think of ancient grains as being like grains that were popular prior to the industrialization of agriculture. So there's some kind of ancient wheats as opposed to the typical like common wheat that's used to make most flours. So things like spelt or einkorn, or there's all sorts of creative names that they call the crops that you might find. But those can be whole grain, assuming they have all their components. But of course, a manufacturer could potentially use them and refine them. But I think they are hesitant to do that because if you went through all this trouble of like breeding this very specific type of wheat for like specific flavor qualities, then you probably wouldn't sift out, the part with the flavor.
Right.
So I think generally speaking, they are usually whole grain, but of course, always good to check the label. And then sprouted are popular as well. So that's basically like when the grain kernel is soaked in water, and then it sort of like begins the journey to become a new plant. So it kind of sprouts a little sprout out of it. Sometimes it's very small, not even really visible.
Like in my head, I was like a piece of bread
growing out of your bread.
with little trees growing out of it. But mine didn't look like that. But
but it's I would say it's definitely a trend because not only are there health benefits associated with that, so depending on the time and temperature that it's been sprouted, you'll oftentimes see like greater bioavailability of certain nutrients, meaning your body can kind of use more of the nutrients in them. And then from the industry side, there have been reports of better shelf life as well as lower proofing time in baking. So kind of a win-win.
You see me like taking notes over here, like, shelf life, proofing time, got you. This is fantastic. We are joined here by Kelly Toups, who is the Director of Nutrition at Oldways, and we are learning everything about whole grains. Before we continue the conversation, though, we are going to jump into a little segment we call Eat, Save, Give, so get ready.
Now it's time for Eat, Save, Give, a thoughtful peek into the hearts, minds, and taste palates of our guests.
Kelly, are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Eat,
So this
save,
is
give.
Eat, Save, Give. Yes. So Jenny's going to give you 3 food items. You are going to have to decide which one you are going to eat now, which one you're going to save for later, and which one you're just going to give away.
Oh, okay.
Right? Pressure.
I know. And sometimes it's hard because if you like all 3, or we've had guests that liked none of them, so they gave them all away. But eat, save, give. Okay. So in the spirit of the whole grains conversation, I picked 3 things and we're just going to apply whole grains to them. And then, so basically pick your favorite, you're going to keep it, save it and give it. So the first one is a granola bar. And you can imagine any granola bar you want, like dipped in chocolate, which is how I want to eat them. The second one is a whole grain bread that you might toast and put whatever topping you'd like if you're a jam person or a jelly or whatever. And then finally, whole grain pasta. So if you have to eat one, save one, or give one, what would your choices be?
Oh my gosh, this is tough. I think I would say I would eat the whole grain pasta. Who doesn't love pasta? It goes with everything. Pasta. I would probably save the granola bar for like a hike or a road trip, or, it's a very grab and go kind of whole grain item.
True.
And then I guess the bread, I might give that to a food bank. I know there's been a shortage of bread some places, and so I think that would be a great item to
Look
give.
at you.
Wonderful answer.
Right?
Now my answer is going to be all selfish and ridiculous. But,
What is your answer?
Well, this is easy for me because I'm definitely going to eat my whole grain bread. And I'm going to slather it with butter, peanut butter. Sometimes I make cheese toast. I mean, there's so many things you can do with. And I'm a bread person. I am going to give away my granola bar because I just don't like them. I think it's just having 4 children and literally there's always 4,000 granola bars. They forgot one and it's in a drawer and they're just everywhere. And then I'm going to save my pasta because you can heat it up later and add whatever you want to it. That's mine.
I mean,
CJ.
At first I was baffled by giving away the granola bar, but now thinking back to my childhood, there was drawers of granola bars. That way my mom could just be like, grab a granola bar, go. I am going to eat the pasta also because pasta is my favorite thing in life. Can I eat the bread with it as well? Like a garlic bread? Not the rules. Also, I'll eat the pasta now, provided obviously that there's sauce and condiments thrown all over it. I will probably save the bread later and eat it later with some toast. Now you've got me ruminating on maple peanut butter and some fancy kind of jam or a grilled cheese. I don't know. I just been on a super toast kick. I used to make fun of them. I boycotted avocado toast for a long time. I was like, I'm not that millennial. Now I'm maybe I am that millennial.
But you totally are.
Right. And I will probably give away the granola bar just because I know if I have a box of granola bars and I start eating them, I'll just shovel them in and have 12 at once. So
continue to eat them. Yeah.
That's gonna be my Eat, Save, Give. Do you feel like you've learned so much about us, Kelly?
A lot, actually.
we're old friends now, really.
Right. I mean, we know what you
come on over. I'll toast you
with your whole grain items. Well,
Put
we are joined by Kelly Toups, the Director of Nutrition at Oldways, and we are talking everything whole grains and National Whole Grains Month. And we just finished learning about just even what a whole grain was and what all falls into the category. And we have a lot more questions. We're just going to jump right in. I didn't even breathe.
Are you ready for the questions, Kelly? Because we're going to throw them at you, clearly.
Yes. What is the market showing in demand of whole grain items? Are consumers loving this? Are they not loving it? Are products exploding? What are you seeing there?
Yeah, we're seeing that it's definitely something that consumers are looking for both health reasons, And that has been the main driver for a long time, but more recently also for flavor reasons. And I think that's because you might see like food blogs or like, chefs in the Food Network talk about some fancy whole grain. And so people are starting to think of like, oh, wow, yeah, that tastes good too. In addition to just thinking about like fiber and all the great nutrition benefits.
So this is going to lead me on a tangent, but we know that millennials are like craving, well, I think every consumer is craving like these fun experiences of like premiumization or artisan baked goods or like that craft feeling. And so have you seen any what's your like favorite whole grain things that popped up? Like, do you have one that you've seen that you've just been like, ooh, that's really interesting, I want to try it? Mine is basically any like crafted bread at the bakery. I'm like, every single bread I want to try.
Yeah, I think that's been really interesting. I've seen some interesting like pastries and desserts where they will use like whole grain rye flour or buckwheat flour or some like really interesting flours that you don't typically use every day as a way to like add, cocoa undertones and stuff like that.
Because I read that buckwheat tastes a little cocoa-y. Is that right?
Yeah, and like teff and rye, they kind of have that flavor that if it goes well with chocolate, I feel like it's going to be a popular food.
That's so true.
You are correct. And I don't know anything about breads and whole grains, but if it tastes like chocolate, I'm in.
And to me, all you have to do is like top the bread with whole grains, and I automatically think it's like 10 times fancier than it was before. I'm like, oh, what's this? There's grains on top. I'm in.
Have some.
Exactly.
Well, okay, so I have a question based on the information, CJ, that I think we got from Kelly. There was a part in here that was about the fact that many whole grains are naturally gluten-free. Like, blew my mind. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I felt like all grains were glutinous. I mean, to me, they were synonymous.
Yeah, I think that's a big misconception. But I think actually when people started kind of exploring the gluten-free trend, that really opened more doors than it closed, just because it got people acquainted with like things like amaranth and stuff like that might not have been part of their routine. But yes, gluten or gluten-forming proteins are found naturally in wheat, barley, rye, and triticale. But other than that, all the grains are gluten-free.
That's crazy to me.
So crazy, right? Oh my gosh. I think that's a really interesting bit of information. And I think that it would change the way some people view, the types of grains that are out there and what they're feeding their families. Like, it already is gluten-free. You're not, putting something in your body that it may react to negatively. I mean, maybe you are, but probably not. Okay, and then I have one more question based on the information I got. So I'm just going to toss it out there, CJ. I hope you're cool with this.
Do it.
What is an intact grain? Like we've talked about sprouted, we've talked about whole, and then there's this intact grain like farro.
Yeah, so intact grain is a term we use basically like the kernel itself, like brown rice, like the kernel of rice would be like an intact grain versus if it's ground into flour or something like that, or smaller pieces or like bulgur that's kind of like chopped into smaller pieces.
I just learned what bulgur is. Like I had never even heard of it before in my life until like last week. So very sorry. I was just like, what? Other people know what this is, and I'd never heard of it till yesterday.
Yeah. Holy cow. Okay, so a grain of rice is an intact grain. But does it have to be a brown grain of rice to be considered intact because it still has the husk? Or is a white grain of rice also an intact grain?
I mean, we mostly use this term with relation to whole grains. I guess it depends on who you ask. I might say it's that white rice might not be considered an intact grain because it's not a whole grain, but yeah, probably depends on who you ask.
Interesting.
So we are quickly approaching our limit of time, and I do this every time. I'm like, man, we just got started. But as we wrap up, are there any new things outside of or including National Whole Grains Month that you guys are doing to spur demand for whole grains, and what can everyone else in the world do to help tell that story of how healthy they are, and there's should be no war on breads and grains.
Yeah, so I would say, again, definitely visit wholegrainscouncil.org so that you can join our Whole Grains Challenge for the month of September, win cool stuff. And then, because I know a lot of people are stuck at home right now, we've been doing some whole grains webinars so that people can learn about whole grains from the comfort and safety of their own home. So also on our website.
Fantastic. We will make sure to put some links to these webinars or to the website in the comments or in the description of the video on the podcast. So
I'm excited. I mean, I'm actually like going to seek out whole grains at the store the next time I go. Like, I'm going to go to the aisle. I'm going to seek them out. I'm going to find recipes, which actually, are there recipes on your website as well, Kelly?
Absolutely. Yes.
Because maybe I'll start there. And then next time, CJ, we'll have to have Kelly back and we'll have to talk about what we've made with the new whole grains that we just learned about.
Yes. And my new mission is to try all of these different grains that I didn't know existed, like bulgur.
So exciting.
The world is our oyster now. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. And we look forward to celebrating the entire month of September for National Whole Grains Month.
Yay. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you both.
If you guys need more information on whole grains, recipes on what you can make with whole grains, or you just want to read about what is going on in the bakery world and food world, you can head on over to thebakerstake.com where you can find all of that stuff and more podcasts if you just want to see our faces. In addition, make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast. Well, with that, I'm going to go eat some whole grain pasta for lunch, literally.
Don't forget, keep creating.